Okay, hello and welcome to the virtual investor conferences. My name is Athena Katsoulis, and on behalf of Social Suite as well as the OTC markets, we're very pleased to have you join us for our next live presentation from First Tellurium Corp, a company focused on exploring and developing tellurium projects in British Columbia and Colorado. Please note you can submit questions in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the scheduled meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Tyrone Docherty, President and CEO of First Tellurium Corp, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol FSTTF and on the CSE under the symbol FTEL. Welcome, Tyrone.
Thank you. Much appreciated for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my absolute pleasure to talk about First Tellurium. We're a very unique company, and our story is so interesting that some of you might sit there and think, it's too good to be true, but I can assure you it's not. Everything we say can be backed up. I just want to let you know how excited we are to present today and get a bit of a foothold into the U.S. market. As you can see, there's our logo, or Essential Metals for Sustainable Future. So here's our forward-looking statements. Okay, I hope you're fast readers. I'm a fast talker, so we'll go through there. A little bit about the company. As you can see, we've got approximately 86 million shares outstanding. I myself am the largest shareholder. I don't sell shares. If you look at the insider report, you'll see that I don't sell shares. I continue to buy. Between myself and my wife, I think we own about 12 or 13% of the company. And if we included the warrants in that, I think we'd be somewhere around 20 or 21% of the company. So obviously, I believe in what we're doing. Next slide. Here's key management. I think it's important. You see myself, and I'll give you a little bit of history on myself, is that my previous company, I ran a company called Quinto Mining Corporation, and I took it over in 1997. It had a market cap of $4 million. And I was lucky enough to sell it 11 years later for $175 million. But instead of taking cash, we took shares in the company that acquired us, and they were Consolidated Thompson Iron Mines. And we ended up owning about 20 to 21% of their company. And they sold their company 2.5 years later for $4.9 billion, which means we had an enterprise value of about $1 billion. So we know how to build companies, and that's why we're so excited to be involved with First Tellurium, because it has some similarities to Quinto, and that's how we go about building things. But I'd like to bring your attention to the key management and advisors. As you'll find out later on in the slides, that tellurium, it's mainly used in cadmium tellurium solar panels here in the United States by a company called First Solar. And also has potential in batteries as well, lithium tellurium batteries. So if you look at beyond my board of directors, you'll see that I've got 4 gentlemen there that used to be associated with First Solar themselves. Because I like to surround myself with bright people that have experience that can let me know how to do things. In addition, you'll see that we have people from the academia. I have Dr. Paul Spry from Iowa State University, who is recognized as the world preeminent expert on tellurium. And our other gentleman, Dr. Lee Grote, professor at University of British Columbia, who is our qualified person who's in charge of our exploration programs. Dr. Grote is well known internationally, and he also consults to the governments of Japan and India. So I found that we're in very good position moving forward with expert advice. Here's where our 2 projects are, and they're both considered world-class projects. We have our Deerhorn property up in British Columbia, Canada, which is a high-grade gold, silver tellurium property with a couple of other critical metals on there, as well as a recent discovery of a copper porphyry, which we'll get into later on. And then you see our other property in Colorado called the Klondike property. That was once owned by First Solar themselves, and they dropped it when they decided they weren't going to continue in the exploration of mining. They just continue to buy their tellurium off the property. But what makes that exciting is that the property is so rich that it actually is incredible when you look at the other properties like ourselves in Canada, where we are considered high grade, but it's nothing on the scale of what's down in Colorado. This is from our preliminary economic assessment that was done in 2018. We did it on only 20% of our known zone, just so we could show that we believe we had economic potential of the property. The report itself was done on 20% of the known zone there. 450 meters of our zone was known for 2.4 kilometers. And actually, since then, last October, Dr. Grote and my chairman of the board walked the property and actually extended it by another 1.1 kilometer. So it looks like the zone is at least 3.5 kilometers or 2.5 miles equivalent in the United States. So we're very, very excited about that. Lots of potential. And here we get back to the economic assessment itself. It's, as I mentioned, it was done in only 20% of the known zone, and it was called Robust Economics by the engineers that did it. And it was, as you can see, it was a 1.6 year payback, a 42% IRR after tax. And that was based on $1,300 gold, $1,300 gold and $17 silver. So obviously those prices have gone up since then, and we're excited to get back to the property and do some drilling this year where we believe we can extend it. Now the question is, why now? Why Tellurium? Well, about a year and a half or so ago, the CEO of First Solar did an interview saying that by starting in 2024, First Solar themselves are going to need 70% more than the entire production of tellurium in the world. The world market for tellurium for the last decade has been pretty stable at about 600 metric tons a year. And the president of First Solar said that starting next year, they're going to need somewhere between 900 to 1,100 metric tons a year. So the question is, where are they going to get it from? Okay, it's not an abundant mineral. And it should be noted that out of that 600 metric tons a year supply, 60% comes from China. And as we all know, there are some trade problems going on right now. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, China announced that they were going to stop the supply of gallium and germanium into the U.S., and that caused a bit of a friction. So we posited that we thought that tellurium could be next on the block. Well, the very next day, the United States government actually stopped the importation of certain solar panels from China, saying it was based on slave labor with the Uyghurs. So this is heating up. So as you probably know, the Biden administration about a year ago was looking for domestic supplies of critical metals, which obviously tellurium is. And that's what makes us unique. There is no other company on the planet doing what we're doing. We're the only one that's been looking out for tellurium. And we've been doing it for the last couple of years, probably half a dozen years or so. And unlike a lot of juniors, we sort of keep our mouth shut because I don't want to invite competition where we can deal with property owners that might be interested in optioning their properties. So you can imagine that for First Solar, if they're looking to get all this tellurium starting next year and China cuts off the supply or the U.S. stops it coming in, they're going to need a drastic new deliver of this mineral. So it puts us in a good position, the fact that we're the only junior out there with this tellurium. And First Solar actually knows about our property in Canada. You can see from this slide that this was done at a conference in Germany in 2012 by First Solar themselves. And the interesting fact is that it was presented by Dr. Funsho Ojibowa, who's the director of raw materials for exploration for First Solar. Incidentally, he is one of the people on our advisory board, so we feel pretty good about that. But the crux of the presentation was that First Solar said there was 4 potential world-class potential projects down the road for tellurium. One of them being in China, one of them being Mexico, one of them being in Sweden, and ourselves in British Columbia. And they said at the conference they don't trust China, they don't trust Mexico. So that left Sweden and ourselves. And about a year and a half, 2 years after that conference, the Swedish company sold all of their tellurium. So I don't know to whom. I'm guessing First Solar, but I don't know that to be a fact. So that basically leaves ourselves there as the only company that's sort of a free agent, if you will, based on what First Solar said we were now standing property. And then you look at, we picked up their property in Colorado. And just to let you know, they dropped it not for the very reason that a couple of I've been told a couple of large investors in 2010 or 2011 stood up at the annual general meeting and said to the board of First Solar, "We think you're a bunch of hypocrites. You claim to be a quote unquote green company, but you're involved in the dirty world of mining. How do you square that circle?" So they made the decision that they would drop their mining exploration and continue to buy off the market. So they sold their project to their head of exploration, who formed the company with family and friends and purchased it from them. And he's the gentleman that we optioned the property off of. So again, sometimes good things happen, and most people from the outside said, "Oh, there must be something wrong." Not at all. That's the rationale that they used. Here's a write-up from the government of state of Colorado talking about how outstanding this particular Tellurium project is in Colorado. So again, it's them saying, it's not me saying it. The state of Colorado is talking about how wonderful it is with grades as high as 3.3% tellurium, which is unbelievable. And this is the other interesting element that's coming along that makes our story that much more interesting. This gentleman, Don Freshy, is also on my advisory board. But the history here is that he's the CEO of Phoenix Advanced Materials, who are partners with the University of British Columbia on a new lithium tellurium battery, which is far superior to a lithium ion battery. So when we made the announcement back in January 26th of 2022 about this new battery, our stock took off because the Europeans embraced it. And it traded more than we ever had, and the price went up. And all of a sudden, about a month later, the price went down, and I was sort of shocked when I woke up, what's going on? And that was the morning that Russia had invaded Ukraine. So the people in Europe, especially Germany, decided to sell to get their money back, because who knows what's going to happen. And frankly, I don't blame them. But what makes this battery so special, and why UBC is interested in it and patenting it, is that there's 5 basic advantages to this lithium tellurium battery over a lithium ion battery. And we all know that lithium batteries are the wave of the future, and everyone's looking for various supplies of lithium and cobalt and graphite and so on. But what makes this lithium tellurium battery special compared to the lithium ion battery, what I've been told, is that there's 5 reasons. Number 1, it's much more powerful, 4 to 10 times more powerful. Number 2, it's much easier to charge. Number 3, it lasts twice as long. And number 4, size-wise. So let's imagine this is the size of a lithium-ion battery. Okay, it's sort of out of the screen there. Okay, here's the size of a lithium tellurium battery, which again has all these advantages to it. You can measure with your thumb and your forefinger. So you can imagine what that would do for weights of automobiles and airlines or whatever the case is. And then there's a 5th and possibly more important advantage to it, is that it's a solid state battery, which means it cannot catch fire. We know that lithium batteries can and do catch fire. So I say to people, could you imagine if there was no other advantage of a lithium tellurium battery, only the fact it doesn't catch fire? I'm pretty sure that automobile companies and insurance companies would be interested. And as a matter of fact, for the residents of New York that are watching, you'll know that in mid-March of this year, the mayor of New York, Mr. Adams, did legislation to talk about lithium-ion batteries because a recent, at that time, an electric bicycle from a delivery person caught fire, and it started a 5-alarm fire in New York City. So obviously, it's important that because you read stories around the United States and Canada from various fire departments about the vehicles that catch fire, and it's so difficult to put them out. So this is what gives us great hope, is the fact that when this lithium tellurium battery comes to market, and I understand by the end of this year or early 24, there's supposed to be a small scale production just to prove how it could be. That we're going to have demand for our tellurium from people in solar industry and people in battery industry or automobiles. So we're sitting in a very good situation, to say the least. And when you combine the fact that we're not tellurium specific, because as I mentioned, our property up in Canada has high grade gold and silver, as was demonstrated by preliminary economic assessment. So our future is not dependent on do we sell a kilogram or a ton of tellurium? Because tellurium right now would have about a 5 to 10% at most value of the property. So we will go as the precious metals go. But it's just nice to have that flexibility, to say the least. And here's what tellurium is used for. Solar cells accounts for 40%. The 40% is missing there, but 40%. And thermoelectric is 30%. And that doesn't include the batteries, which we're gonna take a big part of that. But I want to bring you to the fact of the thermoelectric. As you can see, that I think it was April of this year, we got a subsidiary where we own 51% of a thermoelectric subsidiary and 49% to an engineer in the United States, an inventor who approached us to say that he had a couple of prototypes of his invention, thermoelectric invention, to have a big impact on both the solar panel market, but also the automobile market as far as emissions go. And we're hoping to have prototypes for both of those out by the end of September, early October. And you could imagine that if in fact you can have a great impact, especially on the automobile industry, for them, the non-electric cars, they still could be 10%, but internal combustion engines, because it's going to take a while before everything is running on electric vehicles. So if we can enhance the fuel efficiency of internal combustion engines, hopefully there'll be some automobile companies interested in talking to us. So that should be ready by the end of September and October, and it'll shine a completely different light on the subject. What do you think about our opportunity? So we've got two world-class tellurium projects in BC and Colorado, as you say, and with right now, tellurium is needed for the solar industry, as you know, new batteries and thermoelectric applications. And there's a looming shortage, as it's mentioned, especially if the Chinese exporting is curtailed at all. But even if it's not, there's going to be a huge shortage, and that's just for the solar industry. Where's everyone else going to get it from? We're the only junior out there that is been pursuing tellurium for a while. And, we've got two world-class properties. And one thing I should mention, we get a tight share structure, as I mentioned, is that we also have another part of our company, which we don't really focus a lot on, but I think it's important to let people know that, the old saying, you're sort of judged by the company that you keep. And I think most juniors would just love to have the situation where that we're involved in a project called Salmon Gold. And that's salmon like the fish. And that's working with an NGO out of Washington called Resolve Inc., who have been going around the world for almost 50 years, solving various problems, whether it's bringing fresh drinking water to people, educating young ladies that can't be educated, cleaning up mine sites. They started a project called Salmon Gold that works with placer miners in Alaska and ourselves in Yukon, because we have the Canadian rights. And we work with the placer miners. We sell their gold at a premium to two corporations in the United States, and then that premium is then reinvested back into the river, the stream, the inlet. We reintroduce salmon and other fish, and then it's closed off to mining after that. There's no more mining allowed. So it's a way of rehabilitating and restoring the wilderness, introducing salmon to it. And just to let you know, the two U.S. corporations that the gold is sold to is Tiffany and Company and Apple. And when we made the announcement in the news release back in, I think it was 2019, before the pandemic, a couple of people phoned up and said, well, is that true? Is Apple really involved with it? And I said, look, don't believe me. Go on the Apple website, /in Salmon Gold, and you'll see all about our project and what we're doing. And we own 49% of that company that's involved in Salmon Gold, and 51% is owned by our First Nations partner. And if you look at 5 years ago, anyways, when they put it out there, the magazine for Apple, in the center page of the introduction to Salmon Gold is a picture of our First Nations partner overlooking the Yukon River. So again, it's nice to be associated with large companies like that, because they don't get involved with quote unquote cowboys and yahoos. They did their due diligence on who we were. They realized we had this great past success. And how we deal with the First Nations in British Columbia, it was well thought of by them. And one thing I should point out is that, it's one thing for us to get excited about the projects and thinking, hey, we think we got something really good here, which we do, and the preliminary economic assessment vouch for that. But an interesting thing happened. You'll see that I think it was in January of this year, might have been February. We bought our own drill from a group in Alaska, and they insisted they didn't get paid cash. They wanted shares of our company. And the reason for that is that one of their business partners, who's going to be drilling our property here this year, went onto the Deerhorn property with Dr. Goat and Tony, my chairman, and looked at this copper porphyry, which we just confirmed this year that we have. And he was so excited about it, he phoned them and said, hey, I've never told you to buy a stock before, but you should see if you can do a deal with First Tellurium, because this porphyry looks outstanding. And obviously, subsequent to that, they called us up, and we bought a brand new drill that was sitting up there in Alaska. And we'll be getting it moved down to the property here so we can start a drilling program in September. So again, it's not me saying it's someone outside the company recommending that people should get involved with us. So we really have a great opportunity here with this property, with this company. And my personal opinion, as I've shared with some investors before, my personal opinion is that before we put it into production, I think someone's going to want to buy us out. And my question is, my only thing is, I don't know if it's going to be a solar company that needs it for solar panels, the Tellurium that is, if it's a battery company that needs it for their batteries, or an automobile company that needs it for batteries, or whether it's going to be a copper company once we drill this year and start showing the indication of how big this copper porphyry could be. Because we all know a copper porphyry is what every junior company is looking for. It certainly enhances them. Now, we weren't looking for it, but we found it. And the reason we found it is very simple. Thanks to Mother Nature and global warming, because we're up a mountain, what was previously covered by glaciers and snow has now melted, so we can actually see the mineralization underneath. So it really affords us the opportunity to advance our company. And again, if we don't get any offers that we think are earth-shattering, to say the least, then we plan on moving forward on a small mines basis. And as the PEA said, just on 20% of the known zone, that's a 9-year mine life. And I should mention that the depth of our drilling has only been down to an average of 60 meters. That's 200 feet. So the property is open in 3 directions, and down below. So we think there's a great chance to enhance the size of it. So I should put in perspective, just, I'm not a geologist, I'm not an engineer, I'm just a business person that looks for opportunities. And when I mentioned I sold the company from a Quintal Mine from $4 million, sold it for $175 million, and took shares of the company that ended up being worth $1 billion to us, the negotiations lasted all of 10 minutes. It wasn't 10 weeks, wasn't 10 days, it was 10 minutes. And we did it down at the Masters Golf Tournament at Augusta, Georgia. We shared a house and had discussions on a Saturday night. And the reason it took so quick to do is because they needed the property, and it was great for our shareholders. So I always believe the best time to sell something is when you don't have to. And in this situation, as I say, if we get multiple potential suitors for our company, it's like when you sell real estate, it's better to have multiple potential buyers than one. So that's the situation that we put ourselves in. And obviously, management believes in what they're doing. We don't sell our shares, as you can see. We participate in every financing that we do, because, a lot of people like to tell stories about their companies, but I'm fully invested with the shareholders. So I can't tell you where I think the stock price is going to, whether we're cheap or overpriced. That's not my job. You can figure it out. But there is no other company in the world doing what we're doing. And we have so many options to advance it, whether it be solar panels, whether it be the batteries that are about to get introduced, or the thermoelectric prototypes that should be available to us the end of September, early October, which could change our company completely. So I thank you for taking the time to listen to me. You can follow all of our news releases at firsttellurium.com. And if you have any questions, please send them along, and I'll do my best to answer them. But again, thank you very much for letting me talk to you about this very exciting company. Have a good day.